Eco comes from the Greek word oikos, which means home, and it is the same root word in both economy and ecology. Now, this is really important because to have long term sustained economic growth and prosperity, we have to understand and care about the underlying ecology and environment. Before I get into the main point of today's discussion, which is how we are embracing ecology in cities, I want to just take a brief aside to make a plug for natural intelligence. It's a lot of talk these days about artificial intelligence and the huge data centers that are use tremendous amounts of energy, more energy than whole cities. And as there's all this energy and excitement about artificial intelligence, I just want to, again, vote for natural intelligence. All of you that came here today with your curiosity to support the ideas and learning. Natural intelligence is not only important for us as people, as humans, but understanding nature is, again, really important to understanding our place in the world. And that's why my wife and our family love going to visit the natural parks because it's really important to get our young people engaged in nature so that they understand the benefits and connections of it. But today we're here to talk about cities. Now, many people in the middle of last century were fleeing cities for all kinds of reasons, from racial animus and other reasons, but a lot of it had to do with, I think, people's desire to be in a clean environment, right? At that time, cities were viewed as dirty places with pollution. And so people wanted to flee to move out farther to have their own house and further out in places like Greenfield and Greendale in the Milwaukee area, right? There were whole suburbs built around the idea of being away and having your own private parcel where you could garden and do those kinds of things. And that's all well and good. I think it speaks to people across the political spectrum's interest in the environment, from farmers to suburbanites to city dwellers. We all need that connection to nature. And and cities were dirty places, right? In the early part of the last century, or and the 1800s, industry didn't really care about the environment. They polluted the land they were on. They dumped their refuse right into the rivers and lakes. And so it really required a lot of cleanup. And it really put cities in a bad position because once the land is polluted, it's more expensive uh, to redevelop, right? And so cities were left holding the bag for a polluted land that was hard to redevelop. And so people kept moving further and further out to redevelop farm fields into, you know, suburban areas and the like. And all of this is a giant waste of taxpayer money to the extent that we have to build more and more infrastructure further and further out with less people around that area to help pay the shared cost of all of that infrastructure. So cities have had to learn from the past. And this is a picture of that same area in Milwaukee, the Menominee Valley, that has been redeveloped after lots of hard work to clean up the land and the rivers. And you can see new businesses going into the Menominee Valley Business Park with stormwater management and a picture missing. But if you could see what was in there was a guy fishing in the river, Menominee River, right next um, to where we have industry now. So we've cleaned up industry. We have to clean up the land to redevelop it and create better connections so people can live right next to industry and walk and bike to work and not have to commute a long ways. So again, cities are now embracing this idea that we have to, as a matter of economic necessity, look at sustainability in everything that we do. Avoid the mistakes of the past and move forward to be more sustainable in all of these different systems of what it means to be a sustainable city. So cities are complex systems, right? We start with the people in the communities and the faith groups. That's why cities exist, for people to live. Then there's buildings, both large and small, large commercial buildings, the homes that people live in. All of this use tons of energy, water. They're connected to telecommunication systems. So there's a lot that we need to do to make our buildings more sustainable. We have water and wastewater treatment systems to, pull water out of the ground or out of our lakes, treat it, deliver it safely, affordably, and then take it all back, retreat it before it goes back into the lakes and places that it came from. We also have stormwater management systems to help control the rain so it doesn't flood and go where it needs to go. We have transportation systems, the roads, the bridges, the cars that we all own, the gas stations owned by the private sector, which, as a side note, many of them have historically leaking underground storage tanks and things like that that have to be cleaned up. So all of that has to be done more sustainably. We have energy systems, utility companies that have to generate the power, transmit it, uh, and create distribution systems to get it to our homes. All of that can be made more sustainable. We have the trees and urban forests that some people don't think about as infrastructure, but provide valuable services. So in Milwaukee, we have a whole urban forestry department that maintains the thousands of street trees that we have every year. Plus, the rivers and the lakes and the beaches are all assets that have to be maintained. We have solid waste and resource recovery. All the stuff that we buy has to get disposed of. But we hope as sustainability professionals to start recycling more of that, reusing more of it, and composting the organic material rather than just sending it to the landfills. And last, we have workers in industry that power all of that. And we have to make sure that we are supporting a social compact that says if you work hard, you can make a good wage and also work in industries that help restore ecosystems rather than degrading them. Now, the big elephant in the room, so to speak, that cities are dealing with is climate change. So when we burn too much fossil fuels, it is changing the climate in dangerous ways. Now, let me give you some, make that real for how we're experiencing that in Milwaukee and all across the country. We have increased risk of wildfires like Los Angeles burning. We have droughts that lead to out of control wildfires where we're breathing the smoke from wildfires in Canada that have affected all of the Midwest. We have storms that are so big, 12 inches of rain in a day, that are much bigger than what our sewer systems were designed to handle that create flood risks. So this is not just about our kids and grandkids. That's what we used to talk about with climate change. This is stuff that's affecting us right here and now. And that's being driven by the overuse of fossil fuels and everything from the burning of coal and power plants to how we use our car or power our cars with gasoline and petroleum. So we all use fossil fuels. I'm not demonizing them at all, but we have to find ways to reduce the use and try to start to transition in smart ways towards renewable energy. Again, here's pictures of the historic flooding that just happened in Milwaukee this past August. And they used to talk about 100-year storms, right? You may have heard that term. That's outdated thinking. That was using probability models from before the climate really started accelerating. So these risks of extreme storms are happening more and more frequently. And again, this is very personal to people. There is nothing more personal than having sewage backed up in your basement or your belongings ruined, right? So we have to be very concerned as cities to manage flood risk through different things, through different strategies. So we're addressing climate change, um, not just in the city of Milwaukee, but cities all across the country by both reducing our use of fossil fuels in our own operations, but also helping homeowners and businesses do that. And we're also working to adapt to climate change so that we can avoid the worst effects of it. Because climate change isn't like it's going to happen or it's not. The climate is always changing. And every little bit that we do to reduce our impact on the environment helps. That incidentally is a picture of a green roof next to City Hall. And so we are working to reduce the im- impermeable areas and add nature to our downtown environments. This is a great example of what sustainability looks like in buildings. So this is the Milwaukee Public Library's Martin Luther King Branch Library. It's brand new. You can see the solar panels and green roof on this building. It also has geothermal heating systems, so we're pulling heat from the ground to heat the buildings. And one of the things that I love about it that might not be so noticeable is that it is a mixed use development. So here, instead of having a standalone library, this library was built with apartments on the upper level. And there was an agreement with the private sector to put the library on the first floor. And so you have built-in users of the library right above the street. And this density is what makes cities great, right? When you have people living close together, it makes shopping more viable. You can walk and bike to the things that you love. If you can think about, this area we're in Lake Geneva today, it's a wonderful place with shopping and people living close together, and it creates a wonderful, vibrant urban environment. You need more neighborhoods in the United States that are like that, mixed-use developments where people can walk and shop in the same area. But rooftop solar is not enough. We also need large-scale investments in renewable energy at the utility scale, right? So there are some people that are going to put solar on their own roofs. But there are many people that are just going to flip the switch, and wherever that power came from the power company, that's where they're going to get it from. So we have to work with our utilities to demand that they provide more power from renewable energy sources, and increasingly other carbon reduced sources, such as nuclear, needs a second look, I believe. This is an example of a partnership that the city of Milwaukee created with our local utility, We Energies, where we said to them, look, we know you're our utility. We have over 110 city buildings and 77,000 streetlights that we would like to be powered with renewable energy. We have renewable energy goals. Help us work together on a solution. And here we worked with them to build a 10-acre, 2.25 megawatt solar field on a city-owned landfill. So we're reusing the land for solar, and it's powering our buildings for the city of Milwaukee. We are actually going to be expanding this. So this was built in 2021, and we're going to be expanding it so that another 30 acres will be getting solar later this year. And this is just the start. We need cities across the country demanding this. Every single large business could say, I want my power to come from renewable energy, and I want the tools to get that from our utility. And if the utility won't provide it, we need to look at other options to get it from other energy providers. So that's things that we can do on the energy side. Then there's the question of how do we adapt to increasing flood risk and the like. And we have a very dangerous combination in cities right now of too much pavement coupled with an increasing risk of extreme storms. That's what increases our flood risk. So you can see from Google Maps, if you look at Milwaukee, how much less green space there is in an urban environment from space, right? So how do we get more trees and green space into our urban environment to help soak up the stormwater and have the side benefit of having to be less hot in the summer? Because when you're in a city surrounded by a blacktop, it gets really hot and unpleasant and frankly unhealthy for people. So we want to create better connections to nature in our cities for stormwater reasons, for climate change reasons, and for health reasons. So this is a picture of Samuel Clemens School in Milwaukee. This is a pretty standard school design with a giant parking lot or play yard, I guess you could call it that. And this was how it was done. It was just we paved everything, right, with a chain link fence. So that's what a lot of people think of when they think of an urban area, right? Blacktop and chain link fences. And that's not great for kids. When my daughter was going to school, she had a giant blacktop area like this and a little tiny sliver of land of green space. And that's where a lot of the kids were congregated, in the grassy area, just playing in the dirt with the sticks rather than just on the blacktop. So we have a really great partnership with Milwaukee Public Schools and a nonprofit called Reflow that is transforming our schoolyards into green schoolyards to both better manage stormwater, provide outdoor learning environments for kids, and just a better mental health situation for kids, right? So think about what recess is supposed to be for kids. It is supposed to be a mental break from the challenges of being in the classroom. It's a place to get out and have physical activity. And if you're only giving them a blacktop, that's not great. So we work with the schools to identify what do they want to see. We have a process for selecting schools. We work with schools and principals that are really committed to ecological education and give them an opportunity to help design a better schoolyard. And increasingly, you're seeing soccer fields as something that young people want on the field. And incidentally, when they fall on a soccer field that looks like that, they don't skin their arm up as much as they do when they play on a blacktop surface. So what can cities do to be successful? I've shown you some pictures here, and I want to make it tangible for what cities can actually do to get to this point of being more sustainable. And I think the first thing starts with the public, the voting public, to make sure that we are electing leaders that care about sustainability, that talk about the importance of sustainability and climate change, and that incorporates it in their decision making. So you have to have leadership from the top. It's also important to have dedicated sustainability staff. So this is an emerging specialty area in cities to have staff that are really focused on sustainability. But that's not enough. You can't just have 3 people working on it. You need every city agency to be accountable for how they're building sustainability into their operations. So, for example, we work with our police department and we say, hey, you guys buy a lot of cars. How about buying hybrids and electric vehicles, which, by the way, are not only better for the environment, they don't have the tailpipe emissions, but they're much faster at catching the bad guys. Second, we need to think about the life cycle cost, not just the first cost of our investments. So it is cheaper to just pave everything in asphalt. There's no question that's cheaper a lot of times than building in nature-based solutions into our designs, right? But we need to think about the life cycle costs. What are the costs and benefits over the 30 years that whatever we're building is going to be there? So when we build new houses, rather than just building to the minimum energy code set by the state, we should think about investing a little bit more to make those houses more energy efficient through better insulation, through better design, through better heating and cooling systems to help not only cut our carbon footprint, but to help make it more affordable for the people that live there for the next 30 to 50 years, right? With lower energy bills. We need to look at the total life cycle costs. And again, that's a little bit more expensive on the front end. So how do we solve that? We do it through finance. We do this all the time in America when it comes to affording things that have a long-term cost or have a long-term benefit but cost more upfront. We can borrow for college, we can borrow for a home, and we should also think about financing for sustainability. So a major portion of what I do is help create financing programs to help building owners afford that extra cost to do the sustainable thing so they can save for the life of that building, save their tenants energy costs, and save their children energy costs. We need to improve existing institutions and processes rather than always building new stuff, right? So as we work, it's always easier to work with existing banks to help them create green financing tools rather than building new stuff entirely. We need to pilot market-ready technologies, things that we know are pushing the envelope, but that work, right? We don't want to push stuff that is going to fail. And lastly, we need to design programs for convenience, right? Most people are going to do the easy thing. And so we need to make sustainability the default choice that everybody takes by making sustainability the right and easy choice. So I'd love to continue to work with all of you to push for sustainable eco cities going forward. Thank you.